welcome back to another episode of Dear Founder. You just heard me talk all about Kathryn Janicek and her accolades, but I do want to mention personally how I met Kathryn. And I don't even know if she knows or realizes this story, but we started following Kathryn at Bump Club and Beyond when she got pregnant because she was very influential in social media, and she was talking and sharing things about being pregnant and her journey to pregnancy. And that is really how we found her. And so I followed along on her pregnancy journey and the birth of her daughter. And then we somehow linked in with each other. And Kathryn and I just kind of went back and forth, and we would comment on each other's posts. And we never really met, which is kind of crazy because we have all these connections in the world, which is so nuts. And one day, Kathryn posted on my LinkedIn post, longtime follower, first time caller. And I was so touched and honored because I had also been a longtime follower and I had never been a caller of Kathryn. And I followed her and with bated breath, listening to all of the tips and tricks that she was giving her community and her audience and her clients. And I was so honored that she reached out to me, and she did. And she reached out to me to refer a client to me. And then Kathryn ultimately became a client, and now she's my friend. And I am so honored to have her in my orbit and in my life. And I'm so grateful that you're here to share your incredible story with the listeners of Dear Founder. So Kathryn, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. And I had been following you for way longer before that, because I remember, I think I even had you on a show at some point, like WGN or NBC, and booked you, but you never saw me because I had probably a segment booker or a producer of a show, line producer actually like handling you that morning, you as the talent. But then when I got pregnant, I really wanted to reach out to you, and I had mutual friends who were like, yeah, just reach out to Lindsay. I'm like, I can't just reach out to Lindsay. Like, no, I had questions about, like, I really needed to know about, like, car seats and stuff. I'm like, I'm not going to reach out to the founder of this company because I'm clueless about what car seat to buy. And I literally had mutual friends saying, I'll just introduce you. I'm like, I don't want to bother her. So I'm so happy we finally met, and I'm thrilled. I mean, what an honor to be able to work with you, and you helped me so much. And it's just, what you've built is incredible. Twice, the
ditto.
First thing you built and the second thing you built.
Ditto. And what you've built is incredible. And I do wish that you would have reached out to me, because now I think that that's how I am, that you can just reach out to me. So, right. So, I mean, that is how I am. People reach out all the time, but I'm glad that we found each other. I'm glad that you're here. And I would love for you to share in your words. They just heard the intro, but in your words, tell us your story. How did you get to where you are? What do you do?
I was one of those very few people who knew what she wanted to do, probably from junior high, late elementary school. I was on the newspapers in junior high, and in high school. And then I went to college for broadcast journalism. And I went, I moved all around the country working at television stations as a producer, an executive producer. I dabbled in a little bit of reporting, and I was not very good at that. When I was about 21, 22, and I used to get just petrified in front of that camera. I'm like, management is my thing. So moved all around the country. And then I ended up in Chicago working at WGN and NBC Chicago. And then as a VP of news for a network that went national. And it went under, honestly, and I lost my job, and I started a company, and now I've been in business for myself for 8 years, and I'm a media trainer and a public speaking coach. So I help people make sure that their message gets across to every audience that they want to reach. And it's a joy. I coached anchors and reporters before, and now I get to coach CEOs and make sure that they're heard, and that when they're on CNN or MSNBC or Bloomberg News or 60 Minutes, even I've coached people before, Good Morning America, Today's Show, making sure that they get that return on investment when they, spend that time to get ready and be on a big network television show, live or taped. So it's really neat. It's I feel like I have the best job in the world.
Well, it's interesting because for you, you do have the best job in the world. Do you know what I mean? And you are living a life that so many people who have years of experience want to be living. You have 3 Emmy Awards, you have 25 years of experience, and you are monetizing that experience. You have created a business out of it. So when you decided that this was what you were going to do, how do you do that? There are so many people listening who have service-based businesses or who want to have service-based businesses, but don't really know where to start. Where do you start?
Well, I followed the demand. I knew that I had this one I should check myself because I had lots of skills, but I didn't know. When you're in one career, you think, well, this is all I can do. So I can only go and be an executive producer in New York or LA next, because that was my next move coming from Chicago, because Chicago is the third largest market. So for me, naturally, it would have been to go to LA or New York. But for anyone listening to this, I'm going to tell you, kind of paint a picture of where I was at in my life. I was 37 years old. And honestly, if you've ever looked at the numbers for like a single woman in New York, I was afraid, honestly, I wasn't married yet. I didn't have a child. And I had this fear that if I went and chased that career in New York or LA, I know this sounds really weird, but I actually made this decision that I wanted to stay home in Chicago. For the first time in my life, in my career, I had a home base. I was in Chicago for like 10 years by then. So I had really strong friends. I had a great network, and I didn't want to pick up and move again at 37 years old. And I felt like since I had this home base, like maybe I would get married and have a child, whatever it was. But I literally just kind of put out a shingle and said, I'm a media trainer. I have 20 plus years of experience working at television stations, coaching CEOs and big celebrities before they get on my shows. I can do this for you. But then what happened was CEOs and C-suite folks would say, my gosh, what you do with this media training, you could coach my sales teams or my entire company when it comes to public speaking skills. And then those CEOs would say, I've got a speech in Copenhagen at a conference, or I've got, this going on, and I've got to be on a panel. Can you coach me for this? So I honestly just followed demand. It was like literally taking my high school macroeconomics class, like just follow the demand. The demand was saying, Kathryn, can you do this? So I would say, yeah, sure, I could do this. Had I ever coached anyone before a TEDx talk before that moment or before Shark Tank or something? No, but I just said yes. And because I knew, it's like a television show. I can do this. In television, my job was to make sure that I could keep an audience for 30 seconds more, one more minute, past that commercial break. And it's very much like keeping someone during a podcast or keeping someone entertained when you're doing a 45-minute speech for your, annual meeting. It's very similar. So it was just, I guess, having courage and confidence that I could do it. And then I would do it with success, and they would refer me to other people. So most of my business is honestly just referrals because people had success and they told, 3 or 4 or 5 people. And then now I'm bringing on more media trainers and more public speaking coaches because we have too much business for just me to handle. Right. So that's how we're expanding.
So one of the things that you just said is you had lots of skills and you could do lots of things. And I think that that's a trap that a lot of us fall into. And I know when I first started my 2.0, I kind of listed out all these things that I could do. And it was a lot of things, but you really do have to like hone in on that, like one thing, at least when you first go out and market yourself. Would you agree? Or like, do you think that you should go out with a blanket statement? How did it work for you? And how did you ultimately translate that into success? I mean, you said you followed the market, but at the same time, there were certain things that you did better than others.
You're absolutely right. At WGN TV in Chicago, when I was there, it was the beginning of social media. So I was one of the first voices in there saying, we've got to be on Twitter and we've got to, we have to tell people that we're on air right now, or breaking news has to be on. It was literally just Twitter and I think Facebook. And then when I went to NBC, I was like telling all the on-air folks, you've got to have a Facebook page. And I was building, and I ended up building the most followed Facebook page for the Chicago NBC. And then I was told to consult the LA and the New York stations on how their morning shows could drive people to their Facebook page. So when I started on my own business, I made some mistakes because I was like, I can do your social media. I can, consult you on this. I can do media training. My gosh, I've written people's websites before. So I just it was too watered down. And I did that honestly. Oh, and then I was like, well, I'm a television producer. I've been producing videos I field produced for Soledad O'Brien for a year. I did PBS shows. I can also produce all your videos for your websites because I'm a television producer for 20 years. But then what happened was first, I didn't see the return. I didn't see the margins on video production like I wanted to see and that I could see with media and public speaking training. So the margins weren't there just as a business person, right? I was like, this isn't right. And then also it was just too much. Like, what are you then? What does your company do? Are you a video production company? Are you a social media consultant? Are you, a media and public speaking trainer? So it was confusing to the audience. It was confusing to the client. And I was not, to do social media, you've got to be in it every day and be an expert and be following, the trends. And I couldn't keep up right after I started my own company. So I really had to follow one path. And that's when, honestly, that's when more and more clients started coming. That's when our margins were much, much better. That's when our gross revenue really just started doubling every year, is when I focused on one thing. And that was media and public speaking training. And I got rid of all the video production, all the other stuff.
So let's talk about something that no one talks about. And you don't have to give numbers, but how do you know what to charge? Because that is, I think, the biggest struggle for a service-based business, a consultant, trainer, coach. What do I charge? And how do I make that determination?
You don't know. I didn't know. Well, I'll just be, I'm not going to say you, like, I'm not going to
No,
say
I didn't know either.
that anybody else.
Yeah, I didn't know. So you
I didn't know. And you know what? Today, year 8, I don't know if I'm undercharging. I know I'm not overcharging because I am landing most clients that come my way. So that does actually make me think that I might be undercharging. But right now I'm happy with what I charge. I know I was definitely undercharging in the first couple of years, but no regrets. You know what? I needed to build a business. I need to build a name. Every year the number does go up, and I just see what the market can bear, honestly, because I've never, people have reached out and said, I want to do media training. Can you tell me how much you charge? And I always find that it's like, gosh, that's really private. That's something I don't put on my website. I don't make public. And also, just because I charge this doesn't mean you could maybe make double that I make, so I don't want to give a number because it might be limiting to somebody else. So how dare me just like put out a number and say, this is what the market will bear, because somebody else might have 12 Emmys or might have 10 more years of experience, or just might be more fun to work with. Who knows? So I can't put a number on anyone else's value. I just know that right now, this is what it has been. And I've gone up every year. Right. And it's comfortable. But honestly, nobody teaches that in school. Right. And when I first started my company, I asked a couple of my mentors, I said, should I go get an MBA? Because I know nothing about this. Like, how do you do payroll? How do you should I use QuickBooks? It was very overwhelming, and you make mistakes as you go. I've definitely spent extra on things that I should not have bought. I've definitely burned cash, in the first couple of years. Gosh, this year, maybe sometimes hiring the wrong people or whatever it is. But you don't know until you get some yeses or nos, really, honestly, right?
That's such good advice, and I would say the same thing. I mean, I also asked mentors of mine and people in the recruiting space, like, am I charging the right amount? Is this what do you think? And it's really just throwing out a number and seeing if someone's going to pick it up and pick you up and hire you, right? And then be happy with what they hired. So, I mean, it's very good advice. And that's why I asked it, because I know there's no answer. And I want you to validate what I say all the time, because you have such a successful business and you are happy, which, I think that's half the battle for all of us, is finding the sweet spot of happiness, right?
Right. And you want to make sure you price yourself in a way where when you then have the project that you're excited about, that you don't resent because you gave too low of a number. Yep. And then it's a hassle, right? It's just like a job. I definitely think that I probably will go up, at some point for sure, but I feel great right now. I feel like my clients are very happy with the results. I mean, I know they're very happy with the results, and I'm happy with it's a win-win, right? There's no loser. I feel good about what I'm paid, and they feel really great about the results. So that
advice
awesome.
Alone is a huge takeaway for everyone who's listening. Like that, what you just said, it's a win-win. I am happy and they're happy. And that is really where you want to be. Now, you've grown this business. It's been 8 years. you have a lot going on, and I know that just from working with you. What does your team look like? Who helps you?
I have a couple full-time people. I have employees, right? You can't do this by yourself. And I had advice not early on, but probably 4 years ago from people who said, if you can hire, you will double your revenue. Someone specifically told me, I'm not saying that every company is the same, but it definitely happened. I am so happy that I had the right team in place when the pandemic hit, because we didn't lose business. We actually started, the first year of the pandemic, we were up 50%. Then we were up another 50. And then this year we're up 100% over last year. So it was, or it's 50 and then 100%. I can't remember how many years we've been in this pandemic for, like 500 million years right now. So all I know is we're up 140% this year in 2022, but I would not have been able to keep up and do it unless I had hired people, right? So I have a client success manager. I have a virtual assistant. I actually have 2 virtual assistants. I have, a personal assistant. You have to have people because, well, one is I can't work 16 hours a day. I used to definitely do that, but I now have a 3-year-old who I want to be done with at 5 o'clock, or I want to be done with work at 5 o'clock so I can be her mom. And I want to, be an attentive partner, wife, all that good stuff. So it's not a good life to be working 16 hours a day. But and also when I'm training a client, they're answering emails, right? And they're keeping things going. You need a good team.
That I will agree with, and I cannot wait till I'm in a position to hire a good team as well, because I agree with you. And oftentimes when you pay your team first, to your point, you then supersede the amount of money that you're making. So, right?
I could not go after the kind of business that we're going after right now if I didn't have a strong team. Yeah. Year 1, year 2, like I was creating the PDFs that I would say, someone would say, do you have 6 tips on what do I do right before I get on camera? So then I'd be the one who's like in Canva, designing them on graphics, putting the graphics together and then sending it out. But I can't then go after, new business emails that come in if I'm creating things, graphically on Canva. That just doesn't work. I had a CEO last week who was asking me like that exact thing. They said, what software do you use? What, in how did you do? And I said, first of all, I'll call him Doug. You should not be doing that, because if you're sitting there trying to create graphics on Canva, you are not going to be, expanding your company for 2023. That's just not, and everyone's heard this. You don't do, if you charge, say you charge $250 an hour, you don't want to be doing $40 an hour jobs, right? Because you need to be doing the $250 an hour jobs or the $1,000 an hour jobs, whatever it is that you make. You should not be doing the $20 or $40 an hour jobs. Just like getting someone to clean your house, right? In that 3 hours or 4 hours it takes on a Saturday to clean your house, why would you be doing that when it's a $40 an hour job or a $30 an hour job? That's just not good business.
No, it's not good business. And it's great advice. How do you replicate yourself, Kathryn? Because you have a business that's based on you and your expertise. You talked about bringing in other media trainers. But when you have a service-based business, oftentimes the scalability is really your greatest challenge. And so how do you scale Kathryn Janicek?
There are really talented people out there. I am bringing on amazing media and public speaking trainers who have a ton of experience in the business from different regions across the country. And I'm going to teach them our way that has been extremely successful with Fortune 100, Fortune 50, Fortune 30 companies. Like, as we've landed some really awesome clients and hospitals and doctors, and our way really works. And so I will, teach them our system. And I'm excited about that. We have 2 people right now who we're training and who will be, and we'll be probably at 3 or 4 more public speaking and media trainers by the end of 2023.
will these people be employees of yours or will they be contractors of yours? How do you frame that out to best work for your business model?
As a, I'm going to just quote my CFO. So we at this year we brought on a fractional CFO. I'm not going to say he's not a full-time CFO. I'm not there yet. But we have a fractional CFO who's been really amazing as far as coaching me on this. And if they're still in the business, like if they still have a full-time employer, then they're a contract worker, right? They're a contract employee for me. If they are retired or out of, that this is what they're doing. If they're freelancing as this, then they're a W-2, right? As you say, they're an employee. But yeah, these are all things I've been learning this year.
Well, no, and I'm so glad that you're being so honest about this because these are all things that we as business owners learn. Like you didn't come into this knowing what a 1099 and a W-2 was and how it impacts your bottom line, but that's something that you looked to this fractional CFO to help guide you on, and now you know, and not to say you're doing it because you have the fractional CFO, but you have the knowledge now. And that's so important as someone who starts a business to ask and to get that knowledge so that you can better your business and grow your business.
I look back when I was in my 20s and I was out there getting stories, right? I'm getting sound bites from a Decatur soybean farmer or someone who runs this, is a stock expert for soybeans or something. And I remember when I was 22, 21 years old, and I was always afraid to ask questions because I was there to ask questions, but if they said something that was over my head, I remember just being afraid to look dumb. And that actually hurt the story because I didn't have a very clear understanding of the story. And so then I couldn't tell the story in the way it needed to be told. And I always look back at that as just something that I've learned that you just can't do. And especially when you own a company, the more questions you can ask and not be afraid of the numbers. I was in a program 4 years ago. It's called 10,000 small businesses, and it's run by Goldman Sachs and Wharton. And I remember just sitting there, 22 founders, 22 CEOs sitting there, small business owners. And I was afraid to ask the questions. And here are these amazing experts in the room. But I'm at this point right now where I'm not afraid. If I hire, a fractional CFO, I sit there and those guys, they're working because I keep them over sometimes our meetings because I'm just asking them so many questions. I want them to show me the numbers. I don't want to ever be that person who's like, oh, I've got a bookkeeper who's doing that. I trust she's got it. Or I have this fractional CFO who's going to make sure that my numbers are good and that my taxes are paid and I'm paying the right amount and all that good stuff. I want to have a really good understanding of it so I can make more money or I can have better margins. You know what I mean? I don't want to just have a great gross, I want to make sure that I have a great net. And I also want to make sure I've more than that so I can my big thing is I just want to employ more people. Like I want to create more jobs. That's the coolest thing about being a business owner is somebody this year was able to buy a house because she had a very good income from what I had created. And I wouldn't have that if I was still working at a TV station. And I only bring that up as a TV station because that's all I know, right? For 20 years working at TV stations. But if I was an employee of a TV station, I wouldn't be able to say someone was able to go close on a house this year because of an income I was able to give her. And I'm going to create a maternity leave for her in May because I don't have one now, but like I'm going to be able to construct some kind of cool maternity leave. But I wouldn't, but I ask questions. I ask a bunch of other business owners, like, what does your maternity leave look like? What is what's not the minimum, but like, what does someone want? Is it 8 weeks? Is it 9 weeks? Is it 3 months? What do people need? What kind of health insurance should I offer my employees? But I have learned to go back to journalism and just ask a ton of questions because I won't know. And we can't act like we have the answers. We have to really ask a lot of questions
and the questions and the answers you get lead to success. I mean, it leads to success on your end. And for you with this employee of yours, she's a long-term employee and you want to keep her. And so you are asking the questions to keep her and make her happy. So she wants to come back after she has the baby, right? Like,
exactly.
I mean, and that's so important as a business owner. I remember with my first few employees, like they were with me for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And It's because of those things. I asked questions. I offered health insurance. I did what they needed to keep them in my business. And ultimately, they were my biggest champions.
Yes. And I can't wait until I get to go, oh, she's been with me for 5 years, which, but the biggest thing is just, yeah, if we don't ask these questions, if we don't ask that fractional CFO, what's the best way for me to bring these folks on? How do I get the best health insurance for them so they're happy and they're not like, what kind of bogus health insurance is this? Maternity leave, I don't know what a maternity leave looks like because I had my child when I had already had my company. So I didn't have really a maternity leave because I didn't give myself a maternity leave. I was training the president of the College of American Pathologists after 4 weeks after I had given birth. And I remember that moment where I was like literally standing in front of him and there was a second, and it probably was 1 second, but it felt like 5 minutes to me, that I had no words. Like there were no words in my brain for just like literally a second, and I couldn't grasp it. I'm like, at that moment, I was like, oh, this is why we need maternity leave. You literally are not ready to go back to work. Your brain isn't ready. Your body's not ready. And that's when I had that moment of like, no one in my company is going to go without a maternity leave. Like that just, you're not ready. You're not ready.
No, and it takes the experience to understand what others need, which
Yes.
it does.
Yeah.
So when you look at your social media and you look at the comments that people leave you and how people react and engage to what it is that you put out into the world, people love you. I mean, really and truly, your clients love you, and the people who follow you love you. Your community loves you. You just said you have a referral based business, and that referral based business leads to, that community online, and the community online leads to the referral based business. It really is a cycle, right? How do you ensure that you have those positive experiences for both the community at large and for your customers in order to have that referral based business? Because you really have not invested in marketing. You haven't had to.
Mm-mm. Do the job, right? Show up, do the job to the best of your ability. I have fun too. I'll be honest, like I have fun with my clients. When you have your own business, you can choose your clients. Like I don't take everybody who comes my way. And so I get to work with Wednesday night. I got a text very last minute from one of my clients who's a neurologist, neuroimmunologist at Yale. And she said, hey, I just got booked for Toronto television. Celine Dion has stiff person syndrome. Can you jump on and help me? Like, if I didn't love my job, I'd be like, gosh, this is after hours, right? And I said, hey, husband, can you finish dinner? I got to jump on and we had a good time. Like, it's fun. I really, and I don't want to say go the extra mile because it's not the extra mile. I just do the job. What does the job need? I do the job, and I don't stop until the job's done. I guess, and that's how you get success and have a good time, and you can have a good time when you get to pick and choose who your clients are, right? And when you enjoy being with them. And I enjoy all of my clients. I feel really lucky. I feel really lucky.
What's been the biggest struggle in growing this business?
Sometimes it's trusting your gut. I think when you're hiring people, when you are trying to price something, I'll just mention one thing because there's a lot of things. I think, I want to go back to that pricing thing because sometimes you sit there and you put a number down and then you change the number, right? And you're literally valuing yourself at that moment. It's kind of like if you weigh yourself every week, or if you get on that scale, you're literally like, what is my worth? Like every time you put that number on a proposal, I sometimes sit there and then I'll go and delete a number or delete a zero or whatever. And I'll be like, and I actually have someone on my team who sometimes will sit there on Zoom with me and say, Kathryn, I see what you're doing. You're devaluing yourself. Don't change that number. This is what you're worth. And usually they say yes. It's like, but I think the biggest struggle is not undermining yourself, like not devaluing yourself, not giving yourself, making sure that you remember your value and what you bring. Because sometimes you just want to get the deal, or you want to please someone, you just want them to like you, right? I want you to work with me and like me. But at the same time, you've got to make sure this is a business, right? And this is what this is worth. And you've got to put the number down that it's actually, what is the value? And honestly, the value is far greater than the number that they're ever paying. These folks go on and they get so much business after they knock it out of the park on stage, or do an incredible sales webinar, or whatever it is, or, are on MSNBC or Bloomberg. They see that value for years to come. But sometimes it's really hard to put that number down, and because we sit there and we just second guess ourselves.
One of the things that you and I talked about before we hopped on was this management of authenticity versus following societal norms, because there are societal norms when it comes to presenting yourself in public. But to your point, when we were talking, there's this whole, movement right now that everyone needs to show up authentically as themselves. So how do you kind of walk that fine line with your clients, and what is the advice that you give to clients? Because a lot of people who are listening today are very visible on social media. Many of them are struggling with how to put themselves out on social media, which goes along with what you do every day. It's video, it's being in the public eye. How is it that you tell your clients and direct your clients to kind of straddle the horse here?
I battle sometimes with what I do for a living, because I'm a media and public speaking coach. So I walk in a room and sometimes I'm telling a president or a CEO to do something, or dress a little differently, or change their body language or their facial mannerisms, or the way that they breathe or speak. And it's honestly just because there are societal norms where I didn't create them, right? Or subconsciously, this is how you are perceived when you furrow your brow. Oh gosh, are you mad at me? Are you, am I in trouble? That's what someone you manage might think when they walk into a room and you are doing that with your face. And it's not that I am saying this, it's just, this is our caveman, what we do, how we think about you when you do that, right? So I do battle it, and yeah, I mean, I want to be myself every day, but I also know, I always give this example. I was born with a really barky voice, and it sounds like I'm mad. If I just talk in my normal voice, it sounds like I'm really mad all the time. When I was in second grade, I had boys that would ride by my house and call me man voice, because I've literally had this voice since I was in second grade.
Well, guess
but
what,
I've
Kathryn?
learned,
I have too. So,
right?
and yes, I've had a deep raspy voice my entire life. And that's me.
But I've learned that when I want to get something out of someone, like on the phone, I had an unpleasant experience somewhere and I'm trying to ask, like for something, I have to smile. And that's just, I know I'm going to get more out of somebody if I smile when I'm speaking, and the sound of your voice changes. So it is something that I'm so well aware of, that I'm literally telling men and women to tweak something about themselves and not be exactly how they may feel like they need to be, but it's all about adapting your communication skills so you get what you want out of that meeting or out of that speech or whatever it is. So I like talking to you about that, because it is something I battle, because I struggle with that. I'm literally telling someone, but I do tell the clients, I say, gosh, this isn't so, trust me, I wish I could tell you that you could have nails, that are 3 inches long. But you know what? If you had yellow nails that are 3 inches long and you're doing a Zoom call or a webinar, that could be distracting to the audience. So that's why I would just say, cut them down and make them naked, or just, cut them down short, because I don't want someone to be looking at that instead of hearing what you have to say. I want to make sure that you're seen and you're heard and you're remembered in the way that you want to be seen and heard and remembered, right?
How do you change that direction when you're talking to someone about showing up on social media? Because it's definitely a different approach, right? Like, showing up on social media is, for the most part, I would say, more casual than showing up on a stage or showing up in a boardroom. So would your thought process be different there?
If if you're,
I'm
it
putting you
depends.
to work right now.
Yeah, I know. It depends on what your role is. Like what, not even just what your role is now, but who you want to be in a year or 5 years, if you, yeah, I mean, I've had to come in and tell people to, gosh, you're going out for this residency. You're here because you have failed, in the past to get your, this, I've coached some doctors and they are trying to get a residency and they have failed. And then they come to me and they're like, please coach me before my next interview because I really need to land this. Okay. And then I look through their social media and they've got a bunch of stuff that just might not be something that they want to show off, right? So I tell them to delete all that stuff. It might be, and I'm not saying that's not why they got the job, but like, why have that distraction there where, it could be smoking a joint or having drinking beers and they're all over or passed out on a couch, whatever it is. Why have that distraction if you are supposed to be showing like this healthy, image of a doctor, right? And you're going out for this job. So social media, it might be a little different, but I don't really see it being very different. It should reflect upon who you are and the perception that you want to give, right?
What about though on social media, like when like you show up as a person, like, how you and I go into our stories, like that's a little more casual than it would be giving like a keynote speech, right?
Sure, absolutely.
I
And
mean,
people want to see all those layers of the onion anyway, right? They want to see that I've had CEOs who I've had to tell, literally this happened a couple of weeks ago. He said, I never post on LinkedIn. I just post like articles. And I said, well, you know what? Your daughter just won a major state tournament on Sunday. And I only knew that because he was live, on our Zoom call in that city. And I said, that's a great post, like that you're a proud dad and that, you show a picture of her. She was a goalie and she is a goalie and the whole team, like, on top of her and like, just say, I'm a proud dad and congratulations to all the teammates and can't wait to see what next year looks like. That was the highest engagement post on LinkedIn that he's ever had. And it was perfect. It wasn't really off brand at all. It was totally on brand. He's a CEO, but he's also a father of a 22-year-old or 21-year-old college athlete. So it's perfect. But people do business with people. They don't do business with a logo or a company, name.
thank you for saying that.
Right. And so, and honestly, and that's why I try to get CEOs to actually show up on social media, because of the fact that, if I'm looking and say I'm looking for a job and I see that the CEO is that cool, that he's talking about his daughter and he's so proud, I'm like, I want to work for that guy. I want to work for that woman, That's why it's so important showing all those things.
Well, and I was just going to say, showing up everywhere and showing up consistently everywhere is what makes people drawn to other people. I mean, that's what draws them in, right? So
Yes.
to your point, like, yes, you can be on a stage. I mean, it's very similar to what you just said to me at the top of our conversation. Like you said, I did not think I could reach out to you. And, and I didn't want to reach out to you. You were the founder of this company, but like, me now and you see me now on social media. And it's the same thing for any big CEO. They can't just show up on the stage and then not show up anywhere else. They have to present consistently.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I know that you have a lot going on. You have a lot in your pipeline. And I would love to give you the opportunity to tell everyone listening what's coming up for Kathryn Janicek Productions, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to take away your content and to work with you on various levels. And you just have a lot that people can benefit from.
The most exciting thing I think right now is this new year, we have communities where you can join and you don't have to find time in your schedule to have a one-on-one coaching hour with me or have your company sponsor a 1-day, intensive with our company. Now you can join a subscription-based community where we're going to be giving you training on a weekly basis with all kinds of experts, our stylist, our makeup consultant, our public speaking trainers, our vocal trainers, me me, media training, whatever it is. But if you're trying to go for the next, level of, you're trying to interview for a cool job, or you're trying to move up to become department head, or you have a speech coming up, or you want to pitch yourself in the media, you're going to get all that kinds of training inside of these communities. So that's what I'm really excited about, because I can help more people at one time instead of people trying to, find time to meet with us. So it's going to be also a lot less expensive too to be in one of these communities. And I just think that I'm really, really excited about the opportunity to be able to help more people worldwide, and also those folks to be able to meet each other, right? Like-minded people who are really looking for this kind of skill set to level up their careers. And I'm really excited about this new virtual reality class that it's on Oculus. Like now I'm the first ever, it's just crazy to me, to honestly, I'm the first public speaking and media coach on virtual reality ever. And we shot the class a couple months ago, and now it's on Oculus, and you can just put on the goggles and it's like 7-module class on public speaking training. And whether, like whether you're going out for your first job, or you're going out for, to get to a director level or VP, or you're interviewing for partner, you're going to get some incredible skills there, and at your own time, right? On demand, instead of feeling like you got to find it in your schedule to get me out to where you are.
We're going to make sure to link to that in the show notes too, so that people can find it. Before
Great.
I let you go, I want you to share the same thing that I ask every founder here to share, and that is 3 actionable tips that you would tell to another female founder who's just getting started.
Trust your gut. Trust your gut. Get a good CPA who comes highly referred. Like, don't just find someone, but make sure that other people have had success with them. And take time for yourself, because if you're frazzled, you're not going to think clearly, and then you'll make mistakes. There's a ton of other things you should do, but if you're not doing that, everything else goes to pot. Like, you've got to make sure that you're taking time to meditate, work out, whatever it is, because the more overwhelmed, and you're going to be overwhelmed, but the more that comes at you, you can't handle it if you're not taking care of yourself.
Kathryn Janicek, founder of Kathryn Janicek Productions, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story with us, your knowledge and your wisdom. And I would encourage everyone to follow Kathryn, because the tips that she gives on LinkedIn and on Instagram and in her communities this January are invaluable to any professional out there. So thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Are you kidding me? It's Lindsay.